What is going on, everybody? Thank you all for tuning in to this episode once again of Mikas and Sukas and the CONVO Couch here on Progressive Prime Time. I am your humble host, Nico House, and I am back with Graham Elwood, Ron Placone, and Shannon, who is going to open it up for us. So today we're going to be talking about whether or not to warn or to not warn. Is this a Biden situation where if he gets elected, basically everybody's going to throw the establishment the middle finger and walk off? Or is this one of those, maybe situations? So Shannon, you know, we've talked briefly before the segment started about how I feel about Warren, you know, Ron and Graham. We kind of got to we're all over the place here. And you know, policy-wise, we are all on the same page. And so you expressed that, you know, you're okay with Warren. Like, you don't think she's Bernie, but you're okay with her.
Right. So, like, she's not, like, a full-out democratic socialist. Hasn't been on, like, record having the same policies as Bernie. But what I'm saying is she's coming out with some serious platforms that are directly catering to the progressive issues that are most important to us. And, like, I think that needs to be respected. She actually has plans in place, and she's a smart lady. Like, say what you will, but she's been a very good senator. She's been a strong communicator, and I love the childcare proposal that she put out, the maternal mortality rate proposals. She actually has some interesting stuff, but I will cede to you guys that she's not perfect. She does the military-industrial complex thing, the interventionism, and the Wall Street issues, I think, are her big downfalls in the progressive community, but we can push her, y'all. People can change. She might be our best hope outside of Bernie.
See, I don't think that people can be pushed, though. Not in those type of ways. Does that make sense?
Well, yeah.
When the money is being, like, you can't have two. I mean, you can have two different jobs, but one of your jobs is you're gonna have more loyalty to the job that pays better.
Wait, before we jump to there, like, I want to, and Shannon, because this is something that I have. I agree with you. There are some policy ideas I've seen from her where I'm like, oh, cool. Like, the drug bill that she was working on with Bernie, which would really be a big FU to Big Pharma. That was a big one. She had something in place she was working on for student loan debt that looked pretty promising and pretty solid. And then the other things you brought up, and those are big, and those are, you know, that kind of makes you think, okay, cool. Now, I do question her sincerity because of other votes she casts, because of the timing of certain things. Like, do you share that? Do you not share that? And if you have peace of mind towards her, why?
Yeah, I guess as far as sincerity goes.
Oops.
Ooh.
Kyle Clint's going off.
Kyle Clint's
Is he on the phone? Is this a radio call?
Kyle called in.
I think that we have an unrealistically high standard for integrity for Bernie Sanders because he's so fucking awesome and has actually been using every moment of his 30-year career to push really, really radical policies while everyone else thought he was batshit insane. I don't think that everyone else always has the capability based on their districts, based on their position, based on their own personal power, to be able to come out that crazy. Like,
but I feel like that's different for Warren because Massachusetts is progressive as shit.
It's
like to the point where Mitt Romney basically you couldn't tell the difference between him and Obama. He was the governor.
I mean, but like, okay, Massachusetts is kind of progressive. It is not that progressive. I was living there for a while. It is like the bastion of racist bullshit and like.
Well, I think Alabama probably would be.
Okay, yes.
Have an argument.
But I'll just tell you. Hold on. I'll just tell you about Boston a little bit. Bill Burr who's from there, calls it a racist San Francisco.
Yeah, that's about
like
right.
I you know, growing up in Chicago and being an Irish. I'm not Catholic anymore, but like, and having been to Boston, I can tell you. There's some working class progressive policies, but then there's some real serious racism.
Yeah. Boston was the last city to desegregate public schools.
And riots.
Yeah. Okay. So all I'm saying is that she came from a harder position, and not to play the identity woman card because I'm the only one with a vagina in the room, but being a woman in the Senate, if you have radical policies. Look what people are saying about AOC. Oh, she's crazy. She's stupid. She doesn't have anything to back up. What? Oh, she's a crazy socialist? Like, you take a lot of hits when you're a person who's been in the political system for a while. I'm just saying she has taken some hits. let's see what she does with this platform. Let's see what she does. I'm waiting it out.
So, so my criticism of that would be, Bernie has been in there longer, actually, I think, than Elizabeth Warren has, from the House. Then he went to the Senate. He's taken some hits as well. He's been ostracized. He's been silenced. But just like Bernie, she was safe, basically, because of the makeup of her state. Bernie used that safety and wasn't always right. I should clarify, because people think that he was always right. He voted to bomb Gaza on behalf of Israel.
He's voted for some wars, man. He didn't
He's
vote for Iraq.
voted for some regime.
He does not have a lot of foreign policy, period.
Well, he has foreign policy. Well, nothing that he personally advocated for, but he has some foreign policy blunders that he's voted for.
He voted for Afghanistan.
Yeah, and he gave the president damn near unlimited power with Afghanistan, which is a big problem. So I understand the context, and everybody took the intelligence community for wanting to help the American people, and that was just trying to be a bloody lie. So with that being said, he was still more progressive than anybody else, and it wasn't even close between him and Warren still. And Warren, I don't think, is a bad person, right? But for example, she understood as well as anybody else the age that we have transitioned to with the popularity of Bernie Sanders, which is why it took her so long to endorse, because she was like, oh shit, this is a real problem now. But where was she at a Standing Rock? While claiming Native American heritage, while boosting her platform from it, she was completely and totally silent. No, excuse me, I'm wrong. She wasn't silent. She said, we need to let the workers work and let the police do their job. What was the police's job again? Oh yeah, to take women's eyes out and shoot off college students' arms. That was literally their job. And
pummel people with freezing water and freezing cold conditions.
Exactly. And so when we're talking about that, and then when we're talking about the fact that she does have a lot of great policies she wants to offer now, but where were those policies at when you've been a senator this entire time? With Bernie, I don't really question whether or not he's going to get Medicare for all done, and that's going to be the first thing he does. But with Warren, she hasn't even came out in support of it.
She's not a co-sponsor on the Senate bill?
She came out in support. So here's the thing. It's like Kamala. Kamala co-sponsored as well. But Kamala's people came out very specifically, said, but we sponsored anybody's Medicare. Anything you throw out at us, we'll sign it. So, yeah, it's opportunistic now because they know it's not going to get passed in the Senate, unfortunately. But when the time comes and shit hits the fan, when the Democrats had power, the one time she had everything going in her favor with the Obama administration. She was in charge of that committee that was supposed to make sure that the bailout went correctly and smoothly, and that the people got held accountable, and that the people and we the people were not screwed over. Totally dropped the ball.
The entire Congress fucked that up, though.
But but we're talking about the president. Somebody who's running for president. You know who was speaking out against that damn bailout? Bernie.
Okay.
So do you think it's an unrealistic standard, or do you think it's a pretty? In my opinion, I think it's a pretty reasonable standard. So maybe that's too far back. What has she done recently? And that's where I'm at. I have, in my personal opinions, other people feel different. I have no time for lip service. I need to see what have you done for me lately, and I haven't seen that from Warren in the way that shows consistently. The same way that Kamala has even introduced some pretty good policies lately. But it's lip service, because when she's been in the Senate, what does she introduce in the last 3 years?
Well, I think we're in an anti-establishment time. That's just where we're in. Even Donald Trump, he sold this anti-establishment lie, and that helped him get elected. So we're at a time where we do need an outsider, and we need someone who is going to be very forward and very, quote, radical. That's just where we're at right now. So that's why someone like an Elizabeth Warren, and it's hard when you kind of approach her history, because she has had some shifts. I mean, she was a Republican at one point.
96.
And, and I'm not saying that to be like, oh, well, because who am I to tell people they can't change?
But when you match that up with everything else, it's always, I was this, now I'm this, now I'm this, I was this. And that's her history, is switching. Mm-hmm. There's no consistency.
A little bit. And it's one of those things where it's she's been... she's kind of one of those in the Beltway. I do like her better than the other establishment choices. I think she's a much better option than Cory Booker. I think she's a much better option than Kamala. I think she's a much better option than Biden. I mean, does that even need to be said?
Oh, yeah. That's the problem. I don't want to put her on the same plane as Biden.
No, I don't think she's on the
significantly. Same. I would not say she is.
I'd like to say, I think first of all, I think it's good for us as progressives to have this discussion and even debate, because that's what a primary is about. A primary is about getting the issues out there. I'm glad Mike Revelle is running. Mike Revelle said, I can't win. I'm going to push this as hard to the left as I can. And my personal opinion is the reason why, Tulsi and Bernie met in January ahead of them both announcing. And I believe Tulsi is like, I'm going to be way out there, anti-interventionist. She's the one that was outspoken about Julian Assange and Chelsea Manning shouldn't be imprisoned. And I think that's what a real primary is about. It should be anyone who calls themselves left of center. We should be having these discussions and these debates. And I think it's good to even rank them a little bit. Like you said, Ron, Elizabeth is better than this, but not obviously better than Biden. I think these are good discussions to have, because there is no necessarily perfect candidate. For me, as a guy who lost his house, anybody that was a part of that, letting that bang happen, I got nothing for you. I got nothing for Kamala Harris. She took money from Steve Mnuchin when she was Attorney General of the state of California. She could have prosecuted them. Elizabeth Warren, again, I sort of fall, I think, on what Ron said, and some of the points you bring up, Shannon, are valid. When she has voted for these things, that's a thing, and I think it's important for us to do that, because we don't want to just one issue. I'm out.
I'm not gonna lie, Medicare for all is kind of one of those one issue things.
Right,
for me.
but
she's co-sponsoring Medicare for all.
But the moment that someone introduces something else,
she'll
already
fold.
said
How do you know?
Because she said it. Like, I'm not making this stuff up. Her and Kamala have both said that was like a big thing when she first came out. She was like, I don't know about Medicare for all. It was a big deal all over independent media. We covered it wall to wall. Like, that's the thing about Liz. We don't know where she actually stands on the issues. And go ahead.
We need. I personally, neoliberal centrism is why we're here. This is decades of this. Well, anytime I hear, well, they had to do that, they had to play politics, I'm like, I'm done. We need bold leadership. JFK didn't say, look, getting someone on the moon by the end of the 60s is too difficult. We're going to 70s or 80s. No,
Let's just climb a mountain first.
Rosa Parks, moving to the front of the bus, you cause too many problems, just one row at a time, get bipartisan support. You know what I'm saying?
One row at a time.
One row at a time.
Shannon, what were you going to say?
I think what I want to do is separate out the question. I'm not arguing that Warren is anywhere near as good as Bernie. Bernie is definitely my first choice going into the primaries. I think your initial question was, if Elizabeth Warren is the Democratic nominee, will progressives mass not vote in November? And all I'm saying is I think that is very dangerous until we see what
not
her
vote
platform...
for the president, though. I think they would still turn out and vote, but I don't think they would vote for the presidency.
I think that is very dangerous, because I want to vote my moral compass. I always want to vote my moral compass. I don't want to have to vote for the lesser of two evils. But if it came down to Elizabeth Warren and Donald Trump, I would still vote for Elizabeth Warren. And I hope that people don't see her as bad as Hillary was.
No,
I think Hillary and Biden are more like similar level.
Sure.
Elizabeth Warren is so much more progressive than Hillary was. She's so much more progressive than Biden was, and I think that we could push her in that direction.
Well, I don't think she won't even describe herself as a progressive. Like, she's already came out and straight
all right,
up,
I don't care about the
words. But I will say this. What are we going to do about the fact, so at this very moment, the moment she said, I'm planning to take all the money I can get in the general election, the moment that someone takes corporate money, how can they be working for you? She's working for the same people that Trump was working for at that point, because they donated to both of the parties. So, I can't vote. When you say straight up, I'm taking all the same money that the Republicans are taking. Historically, we've seen Obama had a more progressive stumping speech, and it was more progressive in the debates than Elizabeth Warren is right now. Hell, in some cases, even more than Bernie is right now. Except for the Medicare for all thing, he wasn't for universal health care. But other than that, if you go back and watch, Obama was calling out Hillary Clinton and her loyalty to Wall Street, was talking about all the things that need to get done. The moment that money started rolling in, his entire tune changed, because he was taking the same money. And so when we're talking about the extenuating circumstances, for me, I'm more of an advocate of, okay, if you don't see anybody that reflects your progressive values, and then money in politics is a big one for a lot of progressives. That's the first thing that we've identified Bernie by. He's like, I'm not taking their money. We're still going to win. That was a big thing for everybody. Then advocate at the local levels. Do what you did with Amy. Do what we saw AOC do. Run. fight for somebody who is running, because all politics is local. But the moment that we just allow another neoliberal to get in office, it shows once again, because the only way, and I'm being very clear about this, Elizabeth Warren can't beat Bernie in any legitimate way, in any legitimate race. No way, no how, no hell. Like 1 million volunteers, over 1 million volunteers, over a million individual donors, 17 million to his party. He has more money than the entire Democratic Party and all their fundraising arms combined. That is, in God, we're not even talking about his crowd turnout. So if she does win, it's because she's chosen to win. And if she's chosen to win,
there's no way the establishment chooses her over Biden. And I think Bernie will
but
win
if
over
she
her.
does, though. But that's what I'm saying.
Well,
if
can I
she
say
does.
this? Because one of the things that we also all have to tread carefully on, and I'm saying like, and this is a message to like all progressives, we have to tread carefully. There is a certain danger also when we're saying that, you know, think about when we're having this conversation. The primary hasn't even really heated it up yet. Yeah. Like the primary still has yet to go. So, you know, and Glenn Greenwald said this first, and he said it very well. When we just sort of pledge our vote away, we're pretty much guaranteeing we're not going to be heard. So when we pretty much just say, hey, you know what, if this horrible candidate, you know, I'm not saying that Elizabeth Warren is necessarily horrible, Biden is, but, you know, if candidate X, if they're the nominee, well, I'm still going to, that's saying to the DNC, that's saying to the establishment, that's saying to the super delegates who are really hoping it goes to a second ballot so they get a chance, it's saying, don't worry about it.
Ron, it's almost
you don't
as if
have
you
to
had
worry
this argument
about us.
before with somebody else.
I've had this argument before. Yeah, I've had this argument
but
before.
in the same
and I'm
way,
not telling
the
people how to
progressives
vote.
pledging
I'm just
away our
saying-
non-vote, that is also dangerous. Saying right now, before we even know who the nominee is.
But that's
Well,
like
I don't think it's-
it is gaslighting the establishment. It's literally saying, if it's not Bernie or Tulsi, we're not going. So that preps them to say, okay, maybe we should second guess trying to do what we're trying to do, because right now we just found out in California they're unregistering people. We just literally covered this topic. Fiorella figured this out because somebody from the California Democratic Party told her straight up they're using their data to purge voters off the rolls right now. Guess what? We did a video. She tweeted out, and guess what people from California were saying? I was no party preference, or I was a Democrat, and I just recently registered. Guess where I'm at now? I'm no party preference, or I'm a Republican. They just had their registrations change. So, like, they're already prepping to cheat. So why not let them know preventatively instead of reactionary? Like, okay, y'all try it again and see what happens.
We are letting them know. Like, don't get me wrong. I've been like talking shit all over the place about the DCCC and their blacklist. Like, I don't know if I'm on it. I hope so. Yo, blacklist. But like, okay, the establishment is shit. Mm-hmm. We also have to recognize that if Donald Trump has 4 more years, my life will be demonstrably worse as a woman of color, as a survivor. Like, sorry.
No, you're
like
fine. I understand completely.
This shit, as much as I want to be able to elect the perfect person, but my citizenship is in question.
So I don't want to think that we're talking about we're electing the perfect person, because I actually don't believe Bernie's the perfect person.
No,
I actually think the only perfect
either.
person is probably Tulsi. Like, and if I'm being real, like, but my thing is, like, so just how you feel about that situation, as a black man who's been a victim of the criminal justice system, literally not even as much as a year ago, going back as much as 15 years ago, I feel the same way about neoliberals who did the same thing to me. My life is in danger every single day. I'm constantly worried about whether or not I was not last year in a Burger King in Miami, which is pretty progressive at this point, and even the cops there, most of them I've encountered are super cool.
Miami or the Burger King?
Burger King was in Miami. It was in
that a
downtown
progressive
Miami.
huff?
It was in downtown Miami, and that area of Miami is super
The
progressive.
Whopper's pretty progressive.
Yeah, it is.
It's a forward-thinking Whopper.
And I was jumped because of something that had nothing to do with
Yeah.
me. I was completely separate, but I was the only black man in the room.
Yeah, of course.
And that criminal justice system, luckily, it was a woman judge who had common sense, and women judges tend to be much better than male judges. So, but there are a lot of black people, a lot of people in general, who feel the same way that you do about the Trump administration, that I do about neoliberals. And I feel that way about Trump administration too, don't get me wrong. But my thing is, it's a self-perpetuating cycle where we keep saying, I'm scared of, instead of saying, look, and I put things that I know I'm going to be personally affected by Trump to the side. Because I said at the end of the day, Hillary's going to bomb a lot of people much quicker and much faster than anybody else. And at least if I'm going to be worried about putting in jail, I ain't got to worry about that jail being bombed all of a sudden. Like, it is what it is. But when we have Elizabeth Warren, the worst case scenario that I think people are not getting, like the worst case scenario is still a Trump administration. You have to understand, Bolton and these people, Elliott Abrams and all these people have cycled through both Democrat and Republican presidents. The Congress still doesn't get affected necessarily by the president unless people are galvanized to go out and vote for them. So just because we get a Warren doesn't mean we get a progressive Congress. Doesn't mean we get a progressive Senate. Yeah. Everything positive that she could potentially do could get blocked, and everything that she wants to do could get, and everything that Congress, God forbid, their Republican wants to do will get passed. She could try to veto it, and guess what they'll do? They'll do what their money tells them to do, and even Democrats will jump on to overthrow any veto or overcome any veto that she puts out. So it's more that the presidency is more at this point, in my opinion, than just about who has better ideas. It's about a consistent ideological conviction that I feel like only two people have demonstrated, and that ideological conviction affects and reverberates so that everybody can get in office and be in the positions they need to be in to make sure that these presidents' ideas come into fruition.
Well, and can I just say this too, because like since we're talking about just projection down the road, if a centrist goes up against Trump and loses, which I think they likely would, it won't be because of progressives that centrist lost. Mm-hmm. That will not be why they lost. So I mean, I think the best thing we can do is try to prevent the situation from happening.
Do y'all really think that Elizabeth Warren is a centrist?
Yeah, she is.
Okay.
She stood up boldly because she stood up like whenever Trump was cheering on and attacking socialism when they were talking about Venezuela at the State of the Union. Boy, nobody jumped up fast as Elizabeth Warren. Oh my God, yes, I'm a fucking capitalist. She actually said straight up.
Well, the situation in Venezuela is super fucked up. People are starving.
But it has nothing to do with socialism though. Their most prominent, when they nationalized the oil, which would be considered a socialist policy, that was the most prominent economic time. When they got sanctioned for having that prominence, that's when they went by the United States. That's when things got worse. Capitalism caused their problems.
I know it's not socialism's fault. It's the U.S.
But it's not even
in
really
Latin
a matter of
America,
socialism versus capitalism. I just think it's more so she's going to go where the wind blows. And like Ron said, do you believe?
Well, my statement
I just
was
disagree
not.
With that.
My statement was not directed just at her though. My statement was just a broad statement. You know, as far as where she's at, like I'm still, you know, I'm listening. Yeah. You know, like because I think a lot of it we don't know.
Wait, that's all I'm asking because we're throwing around so many hypotheticals. Mm-hmm. All I'm saying is you three have such a huge platform. You speak to the progressive movement. And if you start saying right now that it's Bernie or no one else without listening to their platforms as they develop and as the primary comes on, that will affect people. People will listen and check out so early. And that affects me. And as Cornel West said earlier, you know, the people at the top, they are not just all about policy, but they do have influence on the national conversation and the tone of this nation.
I don't give a shit about tone, though.
I'll say this.
I do care about policy, though.
I strongly disagree that I have a huge platform.
I
you're going on tour.
I'll say this. I agree with that. What you're saying in terms of like we all have platforms and we all have an opportunity to influence, and obviously we're all in agreement. Nobody wants a second Trump term. My point is personally that if the Democrats, their whole bread and butter has been, if you call yourself left of center, we get your vote. We don't have to earn your vote on policy or platform. You just have to vote for us. And, you know, I was told when I voted for Jill Stein that I helped cause Trump. And it's like, well, no, if you understand the way Electoral College works, Hillary won California, the state that I'm in. And the Democratic Party has banked on the fact that we're all going to just vote for the lesser of two evils. So where I'm coming from is twofold. One, I don't want to let them put us in the position to where we only have a centrist left. And I agree, Elizabeth Warren is nowhere near as bad. Joe Biden is bad. He's bad. He's bad. He's like George Bush Sr. That's who he is. He's George Bush Sr. If George Bush Sr. was kind of pro-choice, that's who Joe Biden is. So, and yeah, if Elizabeth Warren got the nomination, I would really see who her VP is, because had Hillary gone, I'm going to unite the party. Bernie's my VP.
Oh, yeah.
We all would have done it. We all would have done it.
I'm hoping if that any sort of situation, Bernie gets picked as VP.
Sure. If that happens, if Bernie's the VP, I'm in. If it's some real progressive, and the only three that I see are Gravel, Tulsi, and Bernie, and Bernie's the only one that even, you know, Tulsi's polling in the 1 or 2%. And
yeah, the polls are lies.
Sure, the polls are like
Bernie's apparently number 2.
Yeah.
Because Bernie's second to Biden right now. He can't even
my
fill a
God.
room,
Sure.
let alone a stadium. So, keep
but
that in
I'm
perspective.
just yes, agreed. The polls are lies. I don't think enough Americans know who Tulsi is yet. Now, maybe if she becomes more of a front runner, they'll start to get to know her. But for me, it's like if I say I'll vote for whoever Democratic Party you give me, the reason I don't is because I'm like then giving them the power to screw me again, to screw Bernie and to screw all of us progressives and just say, and then they'll come back with the same thing.
Yeah.
You got to vote for whoever we put in front of you. If it's Biden, Kamala, you better vote for
Don't
it.
challenge the rigging that just happened.
Because
Ignore it, pretend like it never existed, so we can do the same thing again
Y'all,
the next
I was
election.
on the floor in the primaries. It's ugly. They are trying to rig the system. The system is rigged. As Bernie
saying, not
Sanders
trying
said,
to, unfortunately.
the system
That's
is rigged. I can't do a Bernie accent. That sucks.
The system is rigged.
The system.
It's best I got.
But okay, like the system is rigged. I hate the blue no matter who people. That is so obnoxious. You can't just say like vote for anyone. They could be like a serial killer. Vote for anyone. They're a Democrat. Chill. That's not cool. I think in the same way as the progressive movement, as the leftists in the room who have a platform, like I'm just asking that we don't make like totalizing statements. Like people will follow you if we say no one except for Bernie, or no one except for Bernie and Tulsi, or maybe not even Tulsi.
So,
like,
so I would make this argument only because I interact with like thousands of people today, and I'm sure they can say the same thing. Here's the issue with that: a lot of people felt like that before we have ever even said a word. Like, and it's in there.
After 16, a lot of
we
people
are
felt
mostly
that way.
reflective of, and I would probably say, I mean, in some strategizing things, I do get involved in because I've been involved in that side of politics, and I am. But like most of us are just we were activists first, right? And we're reflective of like the people who determine the outcome of the primaries. These are the organizers, the activists, the people who are on the ground in the trenches, because these are the things that they're hearing from people. And the primaries, not necessarily the general, but the primaries are determined by these people. And what happens after the primaries, whether it be voting, whether it be who organizes, whether it be the fundraising and things like that, that also is determined by these people who are hyper conscious and cognizant of what's happening. And I don't really say not to vote. I'm not going to say I wouldn't vote for Warren in the primary, but I can say confidently the Democrats have 20 million people they have to bring back into their party that left. Like, is Warren the person to do that? So are we not causing a Trump-esque situation potentially by not saying this shit? Like, okay, listen, y'all, you can like Warren. I'm not even saying I would have a problem with her being VP. I would have one, but it's more of a personal thing because I'm worried about if she would come next, like as a president.
And I think too, part of the issue is like progressives have acquiesced too easily. Now, if you look at the Tea Party, obviously not in line with them, but I look at some of their not their offensive tactics, but their mobilization tactics. The Tea Party says this: hey, Republicans, you better have our issues on your ballot or we walk.
And they do.
They will walk. And progressives, I think we like, well, okay, because the Republicans are so bad. And I think more of us need to go, hey, man, you've cheated us. You don't listen to us. You're done. It's what the movie
progressives tend to be part of the marginalized communities. That's
Yeah.
all what drives us to be progressives. So the truth of the matter is a lot of that is selfishness. It's because of the trauma that we've individually experienced, and we're worried that we may go through it again depending on who is in office. Yeah. But we kind of have to get out of that, as crazy as it sounds. But I'm telling you, like, as a black man, something I've had to train myself literally to do, because that's how I used to think of everything. Like, my concern right now is more so for Palestinians who are getting shot dead by snipers. Elizabeth Warren likes Netanyahu, and she was perfectly fine with that. That is a problem for me because she is a commander-in-chief as much as she is the presiding officer of the United States.
She like Netanyahu?
Oh yeah, she's
Also,
his
coalition just broke up. They're having new elections. I hate that man.
That's good. I'm happy about that. But the truth of the matter is, almost no matter who's in power at that point, Elizabeth Warren is going to take money from AIPAC like she always has, and she will do what the hell AIPAC tells her to do. I somewhat control what situation happens to me in interactions with police officers. They can't control the way a sniper bullet gets fired. However, we can control if those bullets do get fired with our foreign policy, and the president has a lot to do with that. And so those things are things that we have to think about. In Somalia right now, Ilan's home, like, she's a refugee because of our policies. Do you think that Warren, like, now granted, I'm thankful for Ilan, and I think Ilan is like a beacon letting us know, like, look at what the hell happened. It took her getting kicked out, and now she has to run for Congress just to get some representation to prevent those type of things, because that's all she talks about now, which is a great thing in my opinion. Ilan is a walking example of when we are apathetic towards issues that don't directly affect us. And I think that that's kind of the mindset that we have to have going if we want to have real change. Is Warren a bad person for America? I don't think so. I think she's decent enough. However, Warren's foreign policy is bad for the rest of the world, which in turn ends up being bad for America. But more importantly, screw that. I don't care if it's bad for America. When someone dies overseas because we're like, but Warren was pretty decent, we don't want to talk her out. No, if she's going to be bad for foreign policy, and this is just my personal opinion, if she's going to be bad for foreign policy, then we can let the DNC know. And I think people
let's
have
push
with
her
their
on it.
dollars.
Let's fucking yell at it.
Let's
yell about it right now.
Which we do, I believe, and I agree that Warren definitely is malleable. I think we can all agree on that. But when we do that with our dollars, which I think that people have done with Bernie and Tulsi, when we do that with our who we're showing up for at these events and things like that, and we do it with our volunteer, that should let the DNC know, maybe we should not fuck with this. Because it's going to affect if Warren wins, people know how she won. They're not going to volunteer for if she's a general election nominee, the convention's going to happen. It will be hellacious. It will be all over independent news, and people will not participate in that particular aspect of the election. I've seen it. I was working for the Working Families Party, where for the first time they endorsed a candidate because they voted on it, and they were like, but we all know how much you don't like them or the situation. So they were telling people work for the Working Families, you don't have to campaign for Hillary.
Wow.
Because people are that conscious about what's happening. And so I guess it's not just about Warren, but about the machine that would have to be behind Warren, basically saying, fuck you, and whoever you supported, you better support her, or you're gonna be, have 4 more years of Trump. But once again, do we have a guarantee that Warren could beat Trump? And
it would depend
we don't
on
have
her
a guarantee on anyone.
No, Bernie's a guarantee.
I think
Bernie's a guarantee.
Bernie
I mean, like, I would like to think so, but like,
no,
shit's weird in the world
there were
now.
people who literally said, "Who are your 2 choices?" Well, I was going to vote for Bernie or Trump, and I was like, hold on, what? Like, I was confused. But when you get down to the nitty gritty, people want an outsider. That's what we've learned from Trump.
Populist,
Well, they're populist because let me tell you something. When 60% of the country doesn't have $500 in savings, they can't handle a $500 emergency. When there's 40 million people living in poverty, and you say $15 an hour, Medicare for all, free college tuition, that's going to resonate. There was a poll a month ahead of Bernie's town hall on Fox News, where Fox News viewers, 40% of them said that if it was Bernie, Trump. 40% of Fox News viewers would vote for Trump. 47% said Bernie.
And that was
when they asked about Medicare for all, people clapped and stood up. No, I think we all know. I think there's unanimous consent here. We all know that this is an outsider time, and and I'm just saying, like, I think in a general, a status quo candidate
would get demolished.
They just wouldn't win, and it has nothing to do with what progressives do or don't do. I don't tell anyone who they should or shouldn't vote for. That's not my thing. I don't vote or shame on any level, no matter who the nominee is. But I
ask my viewers, who do you think?
Exactly.
I tell them what I think.
I'll tell them what I think.
I tell them what I think, and I ask questions.
So we have a pretty thought-provoking question.
Right.
So KH, thanks for the super chats. They said, would you vote Biden with Tulsi or Bernie as VP? Ooh, that's a fucking wrench.
That is
hard.
I mean, now we're really just a total hypothetical because that will never happen.
Well, but if it did,
I think it would be. It could though.
If it did, it did, I don't know. I am torn, and I'll say why. One, I don't know what it's like to be in. I'm not a combat vet. I'm just a comedian. But I've been in war zones, and I've seen them up close, and I'm done with war. I'm done with it. I'm done with anyone that says we need it. I'm done. The military is the #1 polluter of the earth, the United States military. And more importantly, the UN put out that study last year. We have 10 years to get off of fossil fuels completely. If we don't, it's over. And I don't care if we fix everything else. Racism, sexism, wage equality, poverty, schools, but we don't fix the environment with a real Green New Deal. We are done.
I wish somebody introduced something that was maybe even called the All Fossil Fuels Act. Everybody would know that it was specifically to get off of fossil fuels.
So when I see Joe Biden say middle ground, I go
Freak out.
I freak out. So even if he had Bernie as his VP, I don't know, because it's like, so with Biden as president, I guess it'll be better in several ways against Trump, obviously, but he'll still be bombing. He'll still be letting the drilling.
He gets to sign him. Executive
He'll
orders.
let the fracking happen. I don't
Wait,
know.
I'm on board with
ahead,
it.
go
I'm
ahead.
on board with it if Biden and Bernie sign the same agreement George Bush and Dick Cheney did. That agreement, if they sign that
Biden-
same agreement
Biden
where
just goes
Biden just does
golfing.
nothing,
I'm down with
and
that.
Bernie does everything, and I know that they signed it,
If
I'm like, okay.
If Bernie's a
All right.
progressive Dick Cheney, I'm in.
Yeah, for real.
He circumvents the Constitution. Anyway,
about
what
you,
would you
Shannon?
say?
I don't like this option. I choose.
Straight up.
I don't. No. But like about the environment, the EPA just renamed chemicals like freedom molecules. Like, okay, so I'm like, Biden will be bad for the environment. Is he going to rename things freedom molecules? Maybe not. Like, that is an awful standard to have, but comparatively,
Freedom
Trump moved the embassy in Israel to Jerusalem. Do you think he's going to be better on Israeli-Palestinian issues than other candidates?
No, not at all.
But yeah, so I don't know. I guess
It's the tough
yes.
Probably. That's a really
Joe Biden would just
Fun.
rename.
This is the Kobayashi Maru from Star Trek Wrath of Khan. Sorry to nerd out real quickly, but this was the no-win situation.
Khan.
Yeah, this
You know,
was,
but it's so just as a statement before we get going, this was a debate that you could have had if you would have made Bernie the VP when Hillary ran, but y'all decided to use the galvanizer Tim Kaine.
Joe
And-
Biden.
Where is
You
he?
see, we would have actually talked about it if you actually would have put Bernie as a VP.
Tim
What happened to
Kaine.
him?
But like, we didn't even have a conversation.
No,
you made the
know what?
decision
You
for
know
us.
what? Let me tell you the one good thing Tim Kaine did. All right, there is one really awesome thing that Tim Kaine did. Okay, we all love trivia nights. Now, if there ever was a question, is there anyone in politics who can't beat Mike Pence in a debate? We all know the answer.
Wow, yeah.
It made our Tuesday, everybody.
It's
happy hour time.
Yeah, it was like,
Tim Kaine.
and it's so easy to beat Mike Pence in a debate. Like he's not
Right?
that good at any.
Yeah,
really
he's
At talking.
He's
At
pretty
talking.
wacky.
at the thinking.
at
Or
thinking.
like
Cognitive
sitting next to
reality.
people
now,
at dinner.
now with a caveat. Now
He's
here's
like a super
Here's a
villain.
very real caveat, and I really want people to think about this. If you think Biden can beat Trump in a debate, you're dead wrong. Trump would have demolished him because he doesn't use logic. He's not trying to appeal to anyone's like
He's not
greater
winning a debate
humanity
club.
because you're not going to get into a policy debate because honestly, people would legitimately believe that Trump's policies are better than anything Biden has to offer. His policy history is the opposite of Warren's. You can say there's some good things that Warren has done. There is no good things that Biden
Yeah,
has
I
done
don't-
for
I don't
anybody,
know.
and
I
the
don't
bad
know.
things that he's done, he's celebrated. Like recently
Bill.
celebrated. So I think that he would get demolished in debate. And if we might as well just go ahead and start, find your local candidate, find your commissioner, find your councilman, and you advocate hard for them and funnel your money into that because it doesn't matter what we do for Biden.
No, I'll tell
He'll
you
get
what.
destroyed.
If it's Biden and which I hope so bad it's not, but if it's Biden and Trump, the whole campaign season will just be two old white men talking about horrible, bigoted things the other did and why, because of that, they're not fit for office.
Yeah.
And that'll be one of the few moments where they're both actually telling the truth.
Yeah, it's true. We might actually
Ooh.
put a shining light on old white men doing weird, creepy things for the first time in history. Like, we might get some real progress after those debates.
Yeah, maybe we're just. Gonna
You're
be
a
like, this
molester.
is
No, you're a
exactly-
molester. Where you're on the plane with Jeffrey Epstein. Bro, you were with me. We rode together. We took the Uber together. We did a share. Oh, shit, I forgot about that. Like,
There
that is
was
literally what it would be.
Let's
Like,
just chat in the locker room. Fuck this.
Oh,
Yeah.
We're done
Oh
here.
my God!
Yay.
So with that being said, Ron Grant and Shannon have to get going. People, thank you all so much for tuning into this live stream segment of Progressive Primetime. Of course, I'm your host Nico House, and always remember, people more than anything else, find your balance. Peace.